This will be the last for the return to honest money. We just began a second money, so there emerges a specific demand for such goods. It's a focal point effect, as more people focus on a single secondary money for the purpose of storing value outside of the primary medium of exchange. Okay, so if we pay attention to the network effect of those that actually have intergenerational sized wealth to preserve, and we look for the focal point that game theory predicts will be the winner within the Eurosystem's confin stack, we can pretty much know without a doubt what the new secondary medium of exchange winner will be. But what about the primary? Shouldn't it be silver or something? Or isn't there some big NWO power that's going to inflict upon us a sinister new SDR? Or perhaps should we all buy bitcoins and Facebook credits to prepare for barter during barter exchange during the end of the world? As we know it in Austrian economics, there are basically two halves of the explanation of money. So here we go. One half is Karl Menger's explanation of the marginal utility of money that emerged long ago from a system of direct barter. And the other half is Ludwig von Mises' regression theorem that connects modern money to Menger's emergent money through our time value memory and expectations of a money's ability to store value. And what I hope to show you is that the natural progression toward free gold, true honest money in my book, is consistent with both Menger's marginal utility argument and Mises' regression theorem, while the difficult regression back to a fixed gold standard is not. So here's Robert P. Murphy on Menger. Over time, Menger argued, the most saleable goods were desired by more and more traders because of this advantage. But as more people accepted these goods in exchange, the more saleable they became. Eventually, certain goods outstripped all others in this respect and became universally accepted in exchange by the sellers of all other goods. At this point, money had emerged on the market. So taking the above in the context of the ongoing monetary evolution to free gold, gold is more saleable as a store of wealth, or in Mises' words, a secondary media of exchange, in part because of its historical monetary function, which raises its salience. And the whole idea of the marginal utility of gold is interesting. Gold is the only one that has a constant marginal utility. It has no diminishing marginal utility. The 26th unit or gold coin purchased provides the same utility as the first or the 25th or the 13th. A bit of silver talk. Then we get to regression, Mises' regression theorem. And speaking of historical function and its salience as a focal point, as to the other half of the Austrian money theory, the Mises regression theorem. Mises, Robert P. Murphy on Mises. People value units of money because of their expected purchasing power. Money will allow people to receive real goods and services in the future, and hence people are willing to give up real goods and services now in order to attain cash balances. Thus, the expected future purchasing power of money explains its current purchasing power. But haven't we just run into the same problem of an alleged circularity? Aren't we merely explaining the purchasing power of money by reference to the purchasing power of money? No, Mises pointed out, because of the time element, people today expect money to have a certain purchasing power tomorrow because of their memory of its purchasing power yesterday. We then push the problem back one step. People yesterday anticipated today's purchasing power because they remembered that money could be exchanged for other goods and services 2 days ago, and so on. So far, Mises' explanation still seems dubious. It appears to involve an infinite regress. Keep remembering yesterday to 2 days ago, 3 days ago, infinite regress. But this is not the case, because of Menger's explanation of the origin of money. We can trace the purchasing power of money back through time until we reach the point at which people first emerged from a state of barter. So until we reach the point at which money emerged. So basically, marginal utility explains the original emergence of money, while Mises' regression theorem explains the long-running connection of modern money to its ancient origins. Regression tells us that we accept the currency because we think in terms of it. We remember in terms of it. And I think that's a very important point we're coming up upon now. FOA. Naturally, for gold to advance as the leading tradable good, it had to have a numerical unit for us to associate tradable value with. We needed a unit function to store our mental money value in. In much the same way, we use a simple paper dollar today to represent a remembered value only. Dollars have no value at all except for our associating remembered trading value with them. A barrel of oil is worth $22 not because the 22 bills, or 3 bills, or depending on how you denominate it, have equal value to that barrel of oil. Rather, we remember that a barrel of oil will trade for the same amount of natural gas that also relates to those same 22 units. Money is an associated value in our heads. It's not a physical item. This is a very important concept to ponder and reflect upon. Money is an associated value in our heads. And I know earlier you get Mises saying money is the medium of exchange. But medium of exchange and store of value are just aspects of money, which is essentially the concept, the remembered tradable values of thousands of things. The first numerical money was not paper, nor was it gold or silver. It was a relation of tradable value to weight. A 1 ounce unit that we could associate to the trading value to. In reality, a 1 ounce weight of gold was remembered as tradable value for thousands of different value items at the marketplace. The barter value of gold, nor the gold itself, was our money. It was the tradable value of a weight unit of gold that we could associate with that barter value. So here's something to ponder from Rothbard. Money, however, is desired not for its own sake, but precisely because it already functions as money, so that everyone is confident that the money commodity will be readily accepted by any and all in exchange. People eagerly accept paper tickets marked dollars, not for their aesthetic value, but because they are sure that they will be able to sell those tickets for the goods and services they desire. They can only be sure in that way when the particular name, dollar, is already in use as money. So here we go again with this whole regression theorem and the idea that we want to go back to what we already know. So when it came to using fiat money in our modern era, it made little difference what various inflation rates were in countries around the world. 50% inflation, 100% inflation, 1,000% inflation. They went right on playing with the same pesos. There have been countless third world examples of this dynamic, if only we look around. Look at what happened in Russia after they fell. The ruble stayed in use and function with 6,000% inflation. The world is heading towards a huge financial currency crack-up, but it won't work out with gold coming back into the money game. This very long-term transition is playing on a move away from dollar domination, with Europe preparing to suffer less than us by pulling in as many other political trading blocs as they can. When you look at who they are reaching for, every one of these blocs wants gold moving higher. And on and on. And then Timothy D. Terrell on regression and new currency viability. So he also says, if the digital currencies, he's talking about these digital currencies, plan requires people to trade and quote prices in terms of something other than the widely used dollar, yen, mark, euro, or other established currency, Mises' regression theorem would imply that the plan is doomed. I think it's interesting to note that the euro is relatively new. So at some point there was this new adoption, but I think it was slightly different, perhaps. Also, it had been in the works for such a long time that perhaps I shouldn't look at it from an all of a sudden point of view. This euro concept had been in the works for a long time, so, and then I guess the people were able to transition into it in a way. But euro was a new name, a new denomination. It's interesting to think about. But it seems that ultimately what will work is a plan that simply facilitates the exchange of already recognized currencies. And I think that's what free gold provides. The monetary quadrangle provides for that. Monetary systems tend to evolve naturally in their own version of punctuated equilibrium. So this is a natural process towards free gold, toward the monetary quadrangle. Here we go. Here's Mises. No government is, however, powerful enough to abolish the gold standard. And of course, that's just a semantic play here. Gold standard. What he means, well, here we go. Gold is the money of international trade and of the supranational economic community of mankind. It cannot be affected by measures of governments whose sovereignty is limited to definite countries. As long as a country is not economically self-sufficient in the strict sense of the term, as long as there are still some loopholes left in the walls by which national governments try to isolate their countries from the rest of the world, gold is still used as money. It does not matter that governments confiscate the gold coins and bullion they can seize and punish those holding gold as felons. The language of bilateral clearing agreements, by means of which governments are intent upon eliminating gold from international trade, avoids any reference to gold. But the turnovers performed on the ground of those agreements are calculated on gold prices. He who buys or sells on a foreign market calculates the advantages and disadvantages of such transactions in gold, in spite of the fact that a country has severed its local currency from any link with gold. Its domestic structure of prices remains closely connected with gold and the gold prices of the world market. That's a hole I would like to have filled a bit. These are things that I don't really know how they all work at the end of it, but here we go, okay? This is kind of going to end it off here. Fractional reserve banking is the problem. So Bill Still and others are mentioning this, and it will soon be history. And Fofo says, but I'm not talking about fiat fractional banking. I'm referring to fractional reserve bullion banking. So again, this idea of lending the reserve asset. This is the root of all our monetary problems. It is even the root of the problems that arise in the fiat currency banking system. I realize what a bold statement this is, but I have gone into great depths on this blog, exploring it from many different angles. And he gives us again, what is honest money? Honest money is simply money that does not pretend to be something it is not. And the only way you get there is with two monies. One that is a primary medium of exchange but does not pretend to also be the primary store of value. In doing so, it will actually become a pretty good short-term store of value, as it finds stability through stasis with a floating counterweight. And a second one that is the focal point primary store of value, but does not pretend it can also be a primary medium of exchange at the same time. There is no need to lend or borrow the secondary media of exchange that ever existed. The greatest secondary media of exchange. Sorry. Anyway, that is it. So, I hope you enjoyed. Until the next one.